After his old flame came back to the country, William ghosted me for 2 weeks. I broke up with him and, on the rebound, had a whirlwind marriage with his best friend. Later, we all ran into each other at his old flame's birthday party. William had the audacity to order me to go buy a cake. Consider it your apology. I'll pretend I didn't hear that nonsense about you breaking up with me. He thought his rare moment of condescension would have me apologizing meekly, just like always. Little did he know, the man I just married was sitting right across from him. When my bestie heard William was ghosting me again, she was livid. 3 days of no contact? That's a breakup. A week? He's presumed dead. 2 weeks? He'd be less than dust. She never could stand his shitty habit of giving me the silent treatment whenever he didn't get his way. She warned me furiously, "Christina, if you dare get back together with him this time, I'm breaking up with you." I managed a bitter smile. That's probably when I truly decided to end it. After 3 years with William, his habit of leaving me on read had taught me to have a heart of stone. The Sheridan family's businesses were all over Ridgemont. William was the youngest son, with an older brother and sister who doted on him. As a spoiled, second-generation rich kid, he'd grown up living a life most people couldn't even imagine. Even in the most arrogant high society circles, all the other trust fund kids followed his lead and sucked up to him. When we first got together, William's temper was even worse than it is now, and he was incredibly possessive. He wouldn't let me have any male friends and once snatched my phone to delete every guy in my contacts who wasn't a relative. All our plans revolved around him. A call from one of his buddies could pull him out of a movie halfway through, leaving me there alone. But a single late-night text from him could drag me out of bed to drive to a bar in the middle of the night and pick him up. Used to everyone looking up to him, Mr. Sheridan was just as cocky in his relationships. "What do you even see in him?" my bestie would ask, bewildered. "The money," I'd reply with a sheepish grin. "That's easy," she said, slapping her credit card on the table. "I'll support you. Dump that scumbag. Don't be ridiculous." I wasn't lying. The reason I first noticed William, really was because of the money. I was the valedictorian of my graduating class in Ridgemont. But while everyone was celebrating my success, my little family was falling apart. My dad's mistress saw the announcement in the paper, found out the school had given me a $10,000 scholarship, and showed up at our door with her 8-year-old son, demanding the money. It was a bolt from the blue. My mom couldn't catch her breath and collapsed on the spot. I was running myself ragged between the hospital, the school, and home, taking care of my little sister and my sick mom, but I could never get a hold of my dad. He dropped divorce papers on her, took my scholarship money and what little savings we had left, and ran off with his mistress. He left behind my mother in the ICU, me, barely an adult, and my 12-year-old sister. Your mom couldn't give me a son, but she could. Whose fault is that? That was the last thing the man I'd called Dad for 18 years said to me before he disappeared. My big achievement became the last straw that broke my family. I called the police, and when the school found out what happened, they started a fundraiser. But my mom needed surgery urgently, and the ICU bills were piling up every day. We couldn't wait. At my wit's end, a private hospital suddenly contacted me, offering to provide her treatment for free. After asking around, I found out it was a hospital owned by the Sheridan family. William was in my year. He'd heard about my situation, mentioned it to his older brother, and just like that, I was handed a lifeline. Later, we both ended up at the same university and even joined the same photography club. Except he was a core member and the club sponsor, while I was just an assistant, doing odd jobs to help make ends meet. On one field trip, the good-looking guys and girls were walking up ahead while I lugged the heavy camera equipment behind them. I missed a step and lost my footing. I was already braced to fall flat on my back before I even hit the ground. My heart sank, figuring I'd also have to pay for the expensive equipment. But a pair of arms caught me securely around the waist. William, who rarely came to club activities, held me steady. He took some of the gear from me and then cursed out whatever idiot had decided to schedule a photo shoot on a mountain in the rain. The mountain was shrouded in a gray mist that day. Walking behind him, I found myself staring at the tips of his hair, damp with spring rain, and zoned out for a moment. He held out his hand for me to take. It was strong, with well-defined knuckles. After that, my eyes started following him unconsciously. He had a rich kid's temper, but he was all bark and no bite. He had a crush on his childhood friend but was too scared to confess. Sophomore year, we unexpectedly got together. He was the one who asked me out. William thought I didn't know, but I knew everything. The person he'd originally planned to confess to was Isabel, not ordinary me. He prepared a massive public proposal for the girl he loved, only to hear that Isabel was going abroad to study with the fiancé her parents had arranged for her. All his friends who had helped him plan it just stood there, staring at each other. What were they supposed to do with the giant screen, balloons, and roses? To save face, William grabbed me, I just happened to be there, and pulled me onto the stage as the new leading lady. "You're always staring at me. Don't think I haven't noticed." When he found out he was my first love, William was even more smug. He brought me into his circle and made a big show of our relationship. It was as if he was trying to prove a point to his old flame, to show her just how much she was missing out on. We were happy at first. When we were alone, William would dial back his temper and get clingy. He loved cuddling up to watch movies, eating the food I cooked, and always wanted hugs and kisses. Everyone said that a guy like Mr. Sheridan falling for a plain girl like me was like winning the lottery. But his friends all knew I was just Isabel's stand-in. In front of his friends, he was still just as temperamental. If he had a losing streak in a game and got tilted, he'd just log off without a word, leaving me in an awkward silence with his buddies. When I went to check on him, I found him on another account, playing in a duo with a girl named Izzy and sending her in-game fireworks. I asked who she was, and he brushed it off, saying she was just a friend from overseas who couldn't find a good teammate because of the time difference. If I pressed him further, William would stop replying to my texts and wouldn't answer my calls, later blaming me for being paranoid and insecure. Then came the silent treatment, a routine I knew down to my bones. But I already knew the truth. Izzy was his old flame, Isabel. And now, she was coming back. He lied to me again and again, hiding the news of Isabel's return. It wasn't until a party, when one of his friends asked me half-jokingly to my face, "When Izzy comes back, when are you planning to step aside?" I was being openly mocked as a replacement, and William just sat there, drinking and letting it happen. I stood up to leave, but William grabbed my hand. "It was just a joke." "Is it that big of a deal?" "Yes, it is." We had a fight. The camping trip we had planned for the weekend was completely ruined. William started ghosting me again. During that time, Mr. Sheridan was living it up, while I was out of town on a business trip with my professor. One night, I got a sudden call from my sister. She was crying, saying our mom had collapsed. After my dad ran off with his mistress, my mom's side of the family, ashamed of the scandal, had slowly cut ties with us over the years. That left my helpless sister all alone. My brain was on fire with panic. My bestie was traveling abroad and was too far away to help. Swallowing my pride, I had no choice but to call William. He didn't pick up. I scrolled through my social feed and saw that Isabel had returned today. He and his friends had all gone to the airport to meet her. I called countless times before a familiar, impatient voice finally answered. "What, you've come to your senses? If you'd just apologized earlier." My mom collapsed. "My sister's at the hospital alone, can you please?" "William, what are you doing?" "I'm back, and you're still on the phone?" A whiny, coquettish voice came from the other end of the line. "I know. I'll have someone handle it," William said coldly, hanging up before I could even tell him the name of the hospital. I tried calling back, but he wouldn't pick up. I had to text him the detailed address and her room number. I rushed to the station, bought a ticket for the earliest bus, and waited for morning to get back to Ridgemont. 3 a.m. The wind was biting cold. I squatted down, hugged my knees, and fell asleep against the bus station doors. A call from my sister jolted me awake. She said William's brother never showed up. The doctor said Mom's condition was critical and she needed to be transferred, but there were no beds available at any nearby hospitals. My sister was crying so hard she could barely breathe, and my heart felt like it was being torn to shreds. My fingers dug into my palms, drawing blood. The impending tragedy could crush me at any moment. A little red notification caught my eye. Someone from a group chat had sent me a friend request, asking if there was anything they could do to help. I'd heard William mention the guy's name a few times. It was Leo Vaughn, the friend he was most jealous of. In Ridgemont, if any family could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Sheridans, or even surpass them, it was the Vaughns, whose background was impossibly deep. The Vaughns were old money, 3 generations deep, with tangled roots of power. They were a family of intellectuals with strict household rules. I heard Leo only returned to the main family after he came of age. He rarely attended high society parties, but whenever he did, he was the center of attention. Behind his back, William was always bad-mouthing Leo, saying he was just a paper tiger, a relative from a side branch who wouldn't have gotten his chance if the eldest Vaughn's son hadn't been a screw-up. Now, this paper tiger that William talked about was driving to the hospital in the middle of the night, looking after my sister, arranging for a bed, personally handling the hospital transfer, and running around doing everything without a single complaint. He even brought breakfast and showed up at the bus station early in the morning to pick me up and take me to the hospital. Sitting in the passenger seat, I looked at Leo's tired profile. His jawline was sharp, his lips pressed into a thin line. He had handsome features, but his eyes were bloodshot. A strange wave of gratitude washed over me. "Mr. Vaughn, thank you." The car smelled of fresh lemon, clean and tidy. "You're a really good friend." William's relationship with him was so strained, yet Leo was willing to listen to him, pick up his slack, and rush to help someone he didn't even know. "I'm not," the man said. He started to light a cigarette, glanced at me, and put it away. "Huh. I came on my own." We stopped at a red light, and Leo suddenly leaned in. "For my own reasons." His long fingers brushed a stray strand of hair from my ear. I scrambled out of the car. Seeing me pull away, Leo didn't say anything more. I'd only met him a few times, and I didn't think I was beautiful enough to inspire love at first sight, but his gaze held a strange familiarity, as if we'd known each other for a long time. At the hospital, my sister threw herself into my arms, trembling with fear. The doctor said my mother's condition wasn't good. Her body wasn't strong enough for surgery right away, so they could only observe her for now. After I paid the fees, I found a black card with no PIN in the breakfast bag. Leo didn't say much, but he did a lot. Hours later, William finally showed up, reeking of alcohol. He scratched his head, looking a little awkward, and asked why I wasn't answering my phone. I looked at his tired, hungover face and suddenly felt sick. "If there's nothing else, I'm going to go catch up on some sleep." After the welcome back party last night, they'd gone to an after party. He'd been up all night drinking with Isabel and was exhausted. "By the way, Izzy wants to take you to dinner tonight. I'll pick you up. Dress nice," he added. I took a deep breath. "Don't bother coming. Let's break up." "Are you crazy?" William's eyes flashed as he pinned me against the wall. "Just because I didn't answer your calls? Is it that serious? In 3 years, you only came to my house twice. Ask yourself, how did my mom treat you?" He fell silent, his fists clenched. "Now that the real one is back, let's just break up." I was tired. Tired of being Isabel's stand-in, tired of the daily silent treatments. "Don't you regret this?" he said through clenched teeth. "Get lost," I said, turning away and wiping furiously at my tears. After I'd handled everything, I collapsed in the hallway. When I woke up, my sister was by my bedside, her eyes swollen from crying. I thought I had been diagnosed with something strange, but when I asked, the situation was even worse. The doctor said my mother's body was too weak, and for now, she was surviving on willpower and medication. She gripped my hand and my sister's, her arms covered in needle marks from the anesthesia. In just a few days, she had become shockingly thin. She was still worrying about my life, my job, and my sister's studies. I couldn't take it. I ran out of the room, collapsed to the floor, and sobbed quietly. Her time was running out. She was worried about us sisters being left all alone and wanted to see me settle down with a family. But I had just broken up with someone yesterday. A large hand gently patted my shoulder, helping me to my feet. It was Leo. I looked up into his worried eyes, and my own immediately welled with tears. After listening to my story, Leo made an incredible suggestion. Let's go take some wedding photos. It would just be for show, to give your mom peace of mind so she can focus on her treatment. I gave a bitter laugh. I broke up with William. If you're here to be his advocate, you can forget it. There's no chance for him and me. His voice was a low chuckle. Perfect. Huh. I mean, with me. If you agree, we can even get the marriage license right now. We were at Ridgemont's biggest karaoke bar. I hadn't wanted to come, but I was worried that if I didn't make things clear with William, he would bother my mother. Fine, just one last time. Isabel had squeezed herself into an extra small mermaid dress. Perched on a high stool with her legs crossed, she was crooning a love song. She gazed at the man lounging on the sofa below, her every word full of emotion, her eyes smoldering. Rumor was she'd come back specifically to win William over. Compared to the blind date her parents had arranged, her old classmate, now successful and still smitten with her, was the ideal choice. From the moment I walked into the private room and sat down, several songs had passed, and William hadn't once looked my way. He gave Isabel a gentle smile, looking right through me as if I were invisible. Ever since I'd brought up breaking up, he'd blocked me on everything. In our 3 years together, William hated feeling tied down and would periodically ghost me. Sometimes for a few days, other times for a week or two, it was normal. Every time, he'd wait for me to come crawling back to him. He probably thought he had me completely trained. He never expected that even a cornered rabbit will bite. And I was here today to make things clear. William, I need to talk to. Just as I spoke, someone pushed the door open. Well, look who it is. A rare sight. A ripple of excitement went through the room. A tall man walked into the warm room, bringing a gust of cold air with him. My eyes twitched, and the words died in my throat. Leo was here. In that moment, I truly understood what it meant to be on pins and needles. My recent ex was sitting diagonally across from me, and my brand new legal husband was sitting directly opposite. And my ex's old flame was on stage, singing. What a bizarre scene. William looked extremely agitated, the glass in front of him overflowing with stubbed-out cigarettes. I felt like I couldn't breathe and made an excuse to step outside for some air. I hadn't even fully left before someone was eagerly trying to take my place. A wounded voice drifted through the crack in the door. Why does the lady of the house look so unhappy today? Are you two still fighting? Isabel stopped singing and cozied up next to William. You know how he is. Mr. Sheridan loves to ghost people. Maybe he took it too far this time. What's the big deal? It's not like it hasn't happened before, William grumbled. Hearing this, Isabel's heart leaped with joy. She tugged on his sleeve and asked pitifully, "It's all my fault. Is she upset with me?" Everyone rushed to console her. You're overthinking it. Isn't she always the one who comes running back to him? Exactly. Mr. Sheridan has her wrapped around his finger. Only Leo, sitting in the shadows, said nothing. The more William listened, the more irritated he became. He picked up his phone and unblocked me. Standing outside the door, I heard his commanding tone on the phone. It's Izzy's birthday today. Since you're out, go buy a cake and bring it back. When I didn't answer, William spoke again, his voice lower. Consider it your apology. As for that nonsense about breaking up, we'll just forget you said it. He lowered his voice even more, adding, when you're done with your tantrum, come back on your own. Don't expect me to come get you. With Isabel watching, William was still the same arrogant, bossy man he'd always been. Click. I hung up on him and walked away. The room was dead silent. William, maybe she just ran into someone she knows and couldn't talk. Ah. Isabel whispered. A glass smashed heavily on the floor. The sound of shattering glass silenced Isabel completely. He was the only one who got to ghost people. How dare she try to turn the tables on him? William took a deep breath, reining in his fury, and dialed again. The call connected, but before he could speak, a cold female voice cut in. Leave me alone. Get lost. She hung up. He had made a rare exception and reached out first, and this woman still dared to shut him down? Who gave her the nerve? The cigarette in his hand had burned down to the filter, but William didn't feel the sting. He stared at the dark screen of his phone, waiting for her to call back. Just like she had countless times before, her voice soft as she begged him not to ghost her again. She got jealous of Isabel, which ultimately meant she still liked him. She loved him far more than he loved her. With her, William was sure he held all the cards. Leo, who had been silent in the corner, stood up, grabbed his jacket, a smile playing on his lips. Put tonight on my tab. I'm heading out. It's Izzy's birthday, and you're leaving now? What, got a little something on the side? William was fuming and looking for a target, lashing out like a cornered dog. Going home to my wife. His girl must be upset after getting a call from her dog of an ex. Wait, your wife? William's eyes caught a glint of silver on Leo's ring finger. He shot to his feet as if struck by lightning. Who is she? Leo, who had already opened the door, paused. Like it? He casually waved his hand, showing off the ring. My wife made it herself. William stared at the plain ring, which had the tacky word forever engraved on it, a style he'd once mocked. It was probably worth less than a bottle of wine on the table tonight. Christina had once excitedly dragged him to a jewelry-making class, saying a ring you made yourself would lock in your happiness. What had he said then? That's just a marketing gimmick. Only broke, stupid people who can't afford real rings would believe that crap. It's such a hassle. William looked down on it, and his friends had sneered. Leo, you can't be serious. That's not a worthy wedding ring for you, is it? What are you talking about? His wife knows how to live frugally. She even makes her own rings. Not like that last one you dated who wanted a Maserati just for holding her hand. The room erupted in laughter. I think it's special, Leo said, unfazed. As long as it's from her, I love it. The more William listened, the more agitated he became, a sour taste in his mouth. Who is your wife? I'll introduce you sometime. He wanted to press further, but Isabel grabbed his arm. William, what about my birthday present? I was waiting for Leo in the parking garage. As soon as I got in the car, he told me everything that had happened in the room after I left. I was so stunned I almost dropped my phone. I never would have guessed that this mature, steady man could be so adorably childish. There were a million ways to hide a marriage. But Leo had chosen the one that was most likely to give it away. As it turns out, a man knows best how to get under another man's skin. He knew better than I, the ex-girlfriend, what would get to William the most, what would drive him crazy. I should just tell him everything, I said, looking at my nearly dead phone with a sigh. Leo patted my head. Okay. But he made no move to get out of the car. This was his condition for letting me take the call. Hello. When the call connected, I expected William to blow up like he usually did, yelling at me from the start. Instead, it was unusually quiet on his end. Christina, he said, his voice hoarse. Come back. We broke up, I said, looking down and twisting the wedding ring on my finger. It's not appropriate for us to be in contact anymore. William asked in disbelief, are you serious? Yes. Let's just block each other. Is it because of Isabel? She and I. It doesn't matter anymore. I had the phone on speaker, and Leo could hear our entire conversation. If you're not denying it, it means you're jealous of Izzy. You still like me? I suddenly looked up. The man in the passenger seat's expression had darkened. I turned away and lowered my voice. I don't care who you like, it has nothing to. Beep. The call was disconnected. Again? That childish. I hung up. A husky whisper came from beside my ear. My wrist was pressed against the car window, and I couldn't move. It was cold. I couldn't help but shiver. The body pressed against my back was heavy and hot. I'm jealous. Such long eyelashes. Leo had monolids, his eyes thin and faintly bloodshot. My hand was pressed against his chest, while my other was clenched into a fist, my palm clammy with sweat. His gaze darkened, his pupils reflecting my flustered expression. Leo, are you serious? I looked steadily into his calm eyes and asked, word by word. The scent of mint washed over me, a strange sensation invading my senses. I thought I was the only one losing my composure until I noticed the tips of his ears were red. I'm never not serious. I froze for a second, my mouth hanging slightly open. An unbelievable hypothesis popped into my head. Leo likes me? Is that why he suggested? No. For a man from the Vaughn family, who had seen all the top beauties in high society, my looks were plain at best. Other than a spur-of-the-moment impulse, I couldn't think of any other reason. Even if he said he genuinely liked me now, I wouldn't be able to believe it. Perhaps sensing my confusion and distress, Leo spoke slowly. No rush. He tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. We can get to know each other, after getting married. My heart was pounding. I straightened up, trying to regain some composure. I want to set some ground rules. The man let out a muffled laugh. Fine. First, even though we have a license, a sham marriage without feelings is like a house of cards, it'll collapse with the slightest breeze. Can we get to know each other first? Leo seemed to think of something and chuckled. Okay, whatever you say. Second, for now, let's not announce our marriage in your social circle. Leo's brow furrowed. Are you worried about William? No, I just don't want to cause any drama. Especially when my mother's health was so poor. I knew William too well. He grew up being the center of attention, arrogant and used to getting his way. No one dared to defy him. What he throws away, nobody else is allowed to pick up. Even if he didn't like me that much, the fact that something of his had been taken would make him want it back. And since Leo was his good friend, it would definitely trigger William's rebellious streak. If my mom found out about all this mess, given her current condition, the consequences would be unimaginable. After hearing my explanation, Leo just gently took my hand. Okay, whatever you say. Finally, and most importantly, if after a year, we still don't develop feelings for each other, we'll get a peaceful divorce. He helped me through a crisis. I couldn't repay his kindness by trapping him in a marriage. Leo said, you wasted one of your conditions. I asked, huh? What do you mean? Leo tapped my forehead. Exactly what it sounds like. It wasn't until later that I understood. When he said he was jealous, he wasn't joking. Our married life was easier than I had imagined. Leo was a model husband. I used to be busy with my professor's project during the day and would rush to the hospital at night, often skipping dinner. Now with Leo around, he would voluntarily take care of my mom when I was too busy. The CEO of the Vaughn Corporation, not delegating to an assistant or hiring a nurse, but personally serving tea and water, working tirelessly without complaint. He never mentioned any of this to me. Until one day, I was held up by something and didn't get to the hospital until after 8. I was sure my mom would be worried sick. But when I pushed the door open, a tall man was sitting by her bed, quietly peeling an orange for her. His expensive suit was casually draped over the back of a chair, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the handsome lines of his shoulder blades under his shirt. Is that your son or your son-in-law? The auntie in the next bed asked admiringly. So handsome and so filial. He's a rare find. My son-in-law, my mother replied, a rare look of contentment on her weary face. When I first introduced Leo to her as my husband, my mom was shocked that I had switched partners. Especially when she saw the distinguished and elegant Leo, she was so apprehensive that she pulled me aside and questioned me for a long time. And now, she was happier to see Leo than her own daughter. If I so much as scolded Leo, she would start lecturing me. Leo not only won over his mother-in-law but also captured my sister. The subjects kids study now are much harder than what I learned, and every time I tried to help my sister with her homework, I'd get a massive headache. Leo would casually pick up her workbook, quickly jot down a solution on a piece of scratch paper, and a clear, logical problem-solving process would appear. Sis. This big brother is an amazing teacher. He's even better than the special tutor our school hired. What do you mean, big brother? Mom shot my sister a look. Call him brother-in-law. I coughed twice. I wonder what my sister would think if she knew the person teaching her was a distinguished graduate of MIT's mathematics department. I walked Leo downstairs to thank him for all his help recently. If you ever need anything, you can always call me, I offered. After all, it was a partnership, based on mutual give and take. Actually, Leo said, his eyes twinkling, there is one favor I need. A week later. The autumn in Los Angeles was warm and gentle. The socialites and wealthy women, adorned with jewels and dressed in luxurious silks, showed no sign of the changing seasons. The biggest private auction of the fall was being held on the top floor of the Citadel. Only VIPs with invitations were allowed entry. At Leo's arrangement, I had arrived in Los Angeles 3 days early to help Mrs. Sterling prepare for the auction. Diana Sterling was Leo's godmother. When he came to LA for school, he was still an overlooked member of a side branch of the Vaughn family, and the Sterlings had taken good care of him. The items up for auction were a posthumous collection of jewelry from her late husband. The children from his first wife had been causing trouble for months, disputing the handling of the jewelry. Leo was tied up negotiating a multi-party contract and couldn't get away, so he asked me to come and help. I didn't expect to run into acquaintances at the check-in table. Sister-in-law, Isabel exclaimed, arriving in a couture gown on William's arm. I hadn't seen William in a while. He was tall and lean, his eyes cold and arrogant. When he saw me there, he looked like he was about to grind his teeth to dust. Mrs. Sterling looked puzzled. I quietly explained, then walked over to them. You know the Sterlings? William couldn't help but ask, his gaze sharp, as if trying to see right through me. I ignored his question and turned to Isabel. He and I broke up. You can just call me by my name, Isabel. A vein pulsed in William's temple, his rage barely contained. Who did you come with? Isn't it obvious? Isabel had finally coaxed William into bringing her, and now he was gripping her arms so tightly it hurt. Annoyed but forcing a smile, she said, all the LA socialites are here to bid on treasures. As for, what's her name, oh right, Christina, to get a ticket, she probably had to carry someone's bag, right? Haha. Mrs. Sterling was busy greeting guests and had casually asked me to watch her multi-$100,000 Birkin, not worried at all that I might run off with it. I just smiled and walked away. There was no point wasting time explaining things to unimportant people. I had a lot to do today. But I didn't notice 2 people standing around the corner. Mr. Vaughn. Should I? The man next to him was sweating bullets. Seeing the young madam being bullied by some random girl was making even them furious. No need, Leo said with a slight, cold smile. I'll handle this myself. His subordinate remembered the consequences of the last time his boss smiled like that and couldn't help but shiver. Someone was about to have a very bad day. 1 million, going once. 1 million, going twice. 1.2 million. Congratulations to the Vaughn Corporation for winning the bid at 1.2 million. Isabel's face was flushed with anger, her nails digging into William's arm. What is wrong with that Leo Vaughn? She could barely maintain her ladylike composure. Everything I like, he bids on. Is he, a grown man, really fighting with me over women's jewelry? Did I do something to offend him? Only William's face grew darker and darker. After the auction, Mrs. Sterling hosted a cocktail party. I changed into a wine-red evening gown and walked into the venue right into some drama. Isabel had dragged William over to confront Leo. "Mr. Vaughn, your behavior earlier was hardly gentlemanly," she said, her smile laced with venom. "Fighting with a girl over jewelry? That's not very kind, is it?" Leo swirled the champagne in his glass, his eyes not even glancing at Isabel. "My wife likes it." William stepped forward, suddenly speaking up. "Leo, if you have a problem, take it up with me. Why take it out on a young woman and spin this huge lie?" I checked. "People in the Vaughn family say you're not married at all. Because of our ground rules, only a few elders in the main family knew about our marriage." If William said the Vaughns didn't know, he probably couldn't even get close to the core members. "Mr. Sheridan, you should worry about your own money, or," Leo glanced at Isabel. "Your own people." The insult was sharp, implying both that William wasn't wealthy enough to outbid him and that he couldn't control the greed of the person beside him. Unable to make a scene in public, the two of them had to swallow their anger and leave. Mrs. Sterling walked over with me. "Leo, you were quite generous tonight," she said, looking fondly at her godson. "I'm afraid after tonight, you'll be the talk of Los Angeles, and matchmakers will be breaking down your door." Leo bowed his head slightly, a smile on his lips. "If you keep teasing me, godmother, my wife is going to get angry." Mrs. Sterling looked surprised. "Oh. So you really did manage to find a wife?" The man turned to me, bowing slightly and extending his hand with impeccable grace. "She's been with you all day. It's time you gave her back to me." Mrs. Sterling turned, looked at me, now as red as an apple, and couldn't stop laughing. No wonder. I was lost in Leo's repeated use of the word wife, completely unaware that someone was hiding around a corner, listening to our conversation and seething with hatred. The banquet wasn't over, but Leo was eager to get me out of there. The lights on both sides of the LA harbor glittered like daylight, the night wind slightly cool. A jacket, still warm with his body heat, was draped over my shoulders. "Unfortunately, it was a last-minute arrangement, so it's only for 15 minutes, Leo said, pulling the collar of the suit jacket tighter around me, as if afraid the sea breeze would steal the warmth. We boarded his private yacht, where Leo had arranged an exclusive fireworks show for us. Fireworks exploded across the night sky, like golden foil scattering everywhere, their brilliant light painting the harbor in a white mist. A glass of mulled red wine was placed in my hand, the warmth spreading straight to my heart. "You probably didn't eat much tonight. After the fireworks, I'll take you to a great late-night spot." Leo stood behind me, maintaining a gentlemanly distance. The sea breeze carried a mix of tobacco and a light, woody fragrance that tickled my nose and sent my thoughts into a slight disarray. When I turned, my eyes met Leo's, and a jolt of heat shot through me. My mind went blank. Over the sound of the waves, all I could hear was the frantic beating of my own heart. "How do you know Mrs. Sterling?" I asked, trying to break the awkward silence with a clumsy question. Leo had someone bring another large shawl and wrapped it snugly around me before slowly beginning his story. He wasn't born a golden boy. In fact, he was almost abandoned. Leo's father, Robert, was on a business trip to Los Angeles when he met Eleanor, a minor celebrity, and it was love at first sight. Young and impetuous, Robert insisted on marrying someone from the entertainment industry, causing chaos in the Vaughn family. His parents intensely disliked their daughter-in-law, and by extension, the child she bore. Leo was prettier and smarter than his peers, but Eleanor, who had given up her career for her child and followed her husband back to Ridgemont to be a wife and mother, was constantly put down and bullied. Once the initial novelty wore off, Robert's protection and affection for Eleanor waned. Eventually, the free-spirited Eleanor couldn't take it anymore. Weighed down by depression, she filed for divorce and fled back to Los Angeles with Leo overnight. Leo's father thought his wife was just throwing a tantrum, but he didn't expect her to actually run away with their child and find help from her influential friend in LA society, Diana Sterling. With a powerful ally, mother and son quickly found their footing in Los Angeles. By the time his father realized the gravity of the situation, it was too late. After graduating from MIT, Leo founded a company that competed directly with a subsidiary of the Vaughn Corporation, which alarmed the senior management. Only then did they realize that the neglected child from a side branch of their family had grown into the most outstanding member of his generation. Unfortunately, Leo had no interest in the Vaughn family's wealth. I leaned against Leo's shoulder, listening to him talk about his connection with Mrs. Sterling. He spoke of it lightly, but I had a feeling he was only telling me the tip of the iceberg. So you grew up here? More or less. More or less. I was confused, but before I could ask more, an urgent call came through on Leo's phone. It was the hospital. My mother's condition had taken a sudden turn. The hospital was calling to ask for the family's decision on whether to proceed with surgery immediately. Leo immediately arranged for a helicopter to take us back. By the time we reached the hospital, my mother had slipped into a semi-conscious state. I held her hand, my ear close to her trembling lips. I want to try. Her voice was hoarse with pain, each word a tremor. It hurt so much. My vision blurred with tears. I couldn't speak, my shoulders shaking uncontrollably. The surgery had a low success rate, but conservative treatment meant she had to endure inhuman pain every day. I wanted to respect her wishes, but I didn't want to lose my mother. She squeezed my hand, tears tracing paths down her gaunt face and into the pillow. Sweetheart, Mom wants to be brave this one time, even if it fails. Her cloudy eyes looked at Leo beside her. Now that you have someone, Mom doesn't have to worry about you anymore. I don't know how I left the hospital room. I only remember my mother calling Leo in alone and talking to him for a long time. That night, I sat on a cold bench in the hospital, watching the wonton noodle soup in my hands slowly congeal, a layer of grease forming on top. I couldn't eat a bite. Leo stayed by my side the whole time, busy with everything. He took the cold soup from me, ate a few bites himself, then went downstairs and bought a bowl of white porridge with some appetizing pickled radishes. Eat something, he said, opening the lid. The hot steam blurred my vision. Leo, am I being selfish? The tears I'd been holding back finally fell, dropping into the porridge. He sighed, put down the container, and pulled me into his arms. I'll sign the surgery consent form, he said, his embrace warm and steady. Mom took care of the authorization paperwork a while ago. The person who loved me had already thought of everything for me. I cried messily, completely ruining Leo's expensive shirt. The next day at 10 a.m., my mother, with all her strength, tightly held my hand and Leo's, her eyes filled with relief. The face that disappeared behind the red light of the operating room door had a long-lost smile on it. A week later, as her son-in-law, Leo personally arranged my mother's funeral. The rain fell in a hazy mist. My sister and I didn't have many relatives in Ridgemont. The people who came to pay their respects were mostly my mother's old friends from the neighborhood. None of her own family came. Though young, my sister was sensible and didn't cry or make a fuss the entire time, her quiet composure heartbreaking. I wanted to stay at the cemetery to talk to my mom for a bit, so Leo had someone take my sister home. When we were little, we were always waiting. I knelt down, gently wiping the kind smile on the black and white photo, and started rambling. We'd wait for Dad to come home for dinner, wait for him to take us out on holidays. Mom said Dad was busy with work, earning money to support the family. He was supporting a family, all right. Just not ours. I even regret becoming valedictorian. If there hadn't been that news article, if the mistress hadn't shown up, would our family have been okay? At least Mom wouldn't have gotten sick from the shock. Do you know why I agreed to your suggestion so easily? Why I said yes to getting married just like that? Because I don't believe that little red book can make two people last forever. I don't know why, after being hurt so badly by marriage, she still hoped that if I found a good partner, I would be happy for the rest of my life. I was smiling, but at some point, tears had started to fall onto the marble. She had a hard life. I didn't want her last days to be filled with constant agony. I turned to the silent Leo. Did I do the wrong thing? Leo pulled me up, opened his warm coat, and wrapped me in his arms. He rested his chin on the top of my head. You're not the one who was wrong. The ones who don't respect marriage are. I was the one who signed. If someone has to be right or wrong. Leo understood that both my mother and I had already made our decision. Rather than endure the daily torment, it was better to take a chance. But neither of us wanted the other to bear the consequences. Then I'll bear them, the man said, silently shouldering everything. As we were leaving the cemetery, we ran right into William, holding a black umbrella. I stopped him. There's no need. My mom wouldn't want to see you. And him? William's gaze was fierce, fixed on my hand intertwined with Leo's. What right does he have? The right of her husband, Leo said, stepping slightly in front of me. So what Isabel said was true. William's knuckles turned white, his hand trembling on the umbrella handle. You two have been playing me this whole time? Playing him? I almost laughed out loud. William. Whether it was leaving me on read, ghosting me for no reason, or his current delusions, he was always at the center of his own world. The parts of him I was once infatuated with dissolved in the misty afternoon. Think whatever you want, I said, pulling Leo away. I didn't care anymore. Once we were in the car, I rubbed my hands together. The engine hadn't started yet. What's wrong? Leo gripped the steering wheel, his lips pressed tight as he glanced in the rearview mirror. I followed his gaze and saw William standing in the pouring rain. The black umbrella had fallen to the ground, and the man just stood there, letting the rain soak him to the bone, staring blankly at our car. Do you want to get out? Leo asked in a low voice. Huh? In all his confrontations with William, Leo had always had the upper hand. I thought he didn't even consider William a worthy opponent. I never expected him to have an insecure side. This unexpected surprise touched a soft spot in my heart. I leaned over and pulled down the collar of his shirt. I boldly kissed his trembling eyelid. Let's go, husband. After my mother passed away, Leo and I officially moved in together. Leo had prepared the apartment beforehand, choosing a place close to the hospital and my sister's school to make it convenient for me to take care of family and have my sister over on weekends. Even though he was the owner, he never had his own key and never came home without my permission. The day I left the key for him in the car, he moved his luggage in that night. Leo started reporting his schedule to me, always letting me know in advance if he wouldn't be home for dinner. I also got into the habit of cooking a few dishes at home when I wasn't busy. On the day of the Lantern Festival, I made sweet rice balls and waited until 9 o'clock, but Leo still hadn't come back. No text, and no answer when I called. This had never happened before with Leo. I thought of all the times William had left me on red. I thought I had grown used to that kind of indifference, but when it was Leo, I found I couldn't stand it even once. I changed my clothes and decided to go look for him. When the elevator doors opened, I ran right into my missing husband. Leo was wearing a mask, his eyes darting away. Going out? I can drive you. Not anymore. The moment we were inside, I blocked his way. Were you busy today? No. He still had his back to me. I jumped in front of him, forcing him to look me in the eye. He looked away again. Leo, are you seeing someone else? If he was, he should just say so. It was supposed to be a marriage of convenience, and recent events had blurred the lines. He was about to look away again, but when he heard my question, he froze. I seized the opportunity, grabbed his face, and pulled off his mask. There was a bruise under his handsome eyes. His lip and cheek were scraped and bleeding slightly. A flash of embarrassment crossed Leo's face, and he tried to turn away again. Did you get in a fight? I was stunned. I never would have thought that someone as emotionally stable as him would get into a fight. It's nothing, just a small scratch. Your phone. Leo pulled it out. The screen was shattered. No wonder he hadn't replied. He must have dropped it during the fight. I pulled him over to the sofa and started cleaning his wounds. The antiseptic stung, and his brow furrowed, but knowing he was in the wrong, Leo didn't even dare to make a sound. I asked him for a long time, but he wouldn't say what happened. The next day, Leo's assistant, Evans, came to pick him up and gave me a strange look. "Evans, you can tell me." "I won't tell on you." "Ms. Christina." "No, Mrs. Vaughn, yesterday the boss got into a fight with a guy named William Sheridan." "With whom?" "William." I thought he was long gone from my life. It turned out they had run into each other at a friend's party last night. When it was time to leave, Leo wanted to go home for dinner, but William stopped him. A drunk William provoked him and said some nasty, crazy things. The two of them started fighting right then and there. "Nasty things?" "About you, Mrs. Vaughn." The boss was about to win. But then his phone rang, and when he saw it was you, he didn't even bother to dodge and took a solid punch. "So, are you telling me this because you don't want me to call him randomly?" Evans waved his hands frantically. No. I meant, please take down my number, and if you can't reach the boss, call me, and I'll find him. The boss said your calls must be answered at any time, no matter what. The person who loves you will find a way to answer you. Leo had just gone to rest when I got a call from Isabel. "William is beaten up this badly. Are you happy now?" she shrieked. "Oh. I am happy. Thanks for letting me know. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that Leo really didn't lose the fight." Isabel threw the phone at someone. "Did you hear that? Is she even human?" There was a lot of noise on the other end, and then a video call started. William was lying in a hospital bed, his head wrapped up like a mummy, his arm and leg in casts. Compared to William, Leo's scrapes were nothing. He won by a landslide. William snatched the phone and started playing the victim. "Christina, I'm in so much pain." "Me, then stay in pain." I hung up. The news of Leo's fight eventually reached the main family. My mother-in-law invited me to Los Angeles for brunch on the weekend. Compared to my nervousness, Leo was calm. My mom doesn't bite. I had heard that Eleanor was gentle and kind, with an excellent reputation and a wide circle of friends. "At most, she'll eat me, not you," he added. I didn't expect to see Isabel when I pushed open the door to the private room at the restaurant. Next to her sat a woman with exquisite makeup, her hands covered in jade bracelets and rings. I had just sat down when the woman next to Isabel asked with a smile, "And who is this?" Before I could open my mouth, Isabel chimed in, "Mom, that's Leo's wife." "Oh." Isabel's mother feigned surprise. "Mr. Vaughn is married so young?" Eleanor had someone pour me a freshly brewed cup of oolong tea and nodded. "That's why I say you're so good at raising your children, sister. Not like ours, who insists on marrying her childhood sweetheart." The powder on Isabel's mother's eyelids was practically flaking off. The way she called the well-maintained Eleanor sister in that shrill voice gave me goosebumps. "Mom," Isabel said, embarrassed and annoyed. "William was just led astray, otherwise he wouldn't have." She seemed to remember something and covered her mouth. "I'm sorry, Auntie Eleanor, I heard William got into a fight with Leo. There must have been some misunderstanding, or..." She glanced at me. "Maybe someone put him up to it." Sigh. Some people just lack proper upbringing, and their bad behavior ruins things for others. Isabel's mother added helpfully. "Your son really needs to be careful. These young girls nowadays are such good actresses." I gripped the tablecloth under the table, my nails digging into my palms. If Eleanor hadn't been there, I would have flipped this table over. An assistant came in and handed Eleanor a document that looked like a medical report. "Ma'am, this is the report from the young master's checkup after he was injured." "Take it away," Eleanor said, waving her hand without even looking at it. Isabel's mother seized the opportunity, her eyes lighting up. "Sister, you're just too gentle. I know this might not sound nice, but when you're choosing a daughter-in-law, you should pick someone virtuous and well-bred. Like my Isabel, she's highly educated and has a clean background. Not like some people, with no mother or father, no upbringing." Crash. There was a loud noise. By the time I realized what had happened, I had flipped the large Lazy Susan on the table over. I don't know where I got the strength. I turned to Eleanor and bowed slightly. "I'm sorry, I might lose my temper in a minute. Could you please step aside?" With that, I grabbed a hot, steaming basket from the table and threw it at Isabel and her mother. The rich sauce from the chicken feet and the soy sauce from the spare ribs splattered all over them. The two of them shrieked, Isabel's mother still trying to protect her expensive designer bag. I grabbed a plate of rice noodle rolls and threw the entire thing at them. "You shrew!" Isabel's mother stomped her foot in anger. She wanted to fight back but was too busy protecting her bag and couldn't get the upper hand, so she just resorted to yelling insults. "Auntie Eleanor. Is this the kind of daughter-in-law you brought into your family?" Isabel shrieked. "Hold on." Eleanor clapped her hands and came to stand behind me. Isabel and her mother could say whatever they wanted about me, but when they brought my family into it, I couldn't take it anymore. Even if Leo were here, I wouldn't regret it. The mother-daughter duo looked at Eleanor as if she were their savior, waiting to see how she would deal with her daughter-in-law who was causing a scene in public. But Eleanor just took out a pack of wet wipes and handed them to me. "Wipe your hands." The grease on the back of my hand did feel uncomfortable. "Bring another round for the young madam," Eleanor instructed. "We're just getting started." By the time the manager brought out the new dim sum, Isabel and her mother had already fled. "Eat," Eleanor said, turning the freshly arranged pastries towards me. "They're fresh out of the oven." I was still a bit dazed. I never would have guessed that Leo's mother had a will of steel beneath her gentle exterior. She really was the kind of tough woman who would run away with her child. The incident at the restaurant spread like wildfire through their social circle, and Eleanor's defense of her daughter-in-law became a source of envy. Isabel and her mother, on the other hand, became infamous for spreading gossip and making trouble like a couple of clowns. The story of William and Leo's fight at the bar was already the talk of the town, and rumors began to circulate that William had offended the Vaughn family because of Isabel. High society is full of fair-weather friends, and people quickly began to distance themselves from the Sheridan and Lynn families. But that all came later. After brunch with my mother-in-law that day, she acted as if the whole drama had never happened and took me to a Cheongsam shop. It was less of a shop and more of a collection. Hidden in plain sight, I never would have imagined that the famous Cheongsam master's shop was tucked away in an old building in the middle of the bustling city. All of Eleanor's Cheongsams were made by this master. Today, she had brought some aged pu'er tea as a gift, hoping to persuade the master to do her a favor and make a Cheongsam for me. I knew this master had created custom pieces for countless celebrities. For an ordinary person to get one, the waiting list was at least a year long. Eleanor held up different fabrics, draping them against me. A woman should have at least one Cheongsam in her lifetime that is truly her own. The difficulty with a Cheongsam is that it has to be perfectly tailored, not a single inch off. An inch too loose, and it loses its charm. An inch too tight, and it loses its elegance. You never know if clothes fit until you try them on. She looked up and gave me a gentle smile. Marriage is the same. You have to live it together to know if the person is right for you. Hearing this, my knees almost gave out. Eleanor was trying to tell me something. As sharp as she was, she must have known about my sham marriage with Leo. In front of her, I couldn't pull any tricks. In the end, I obediently confessed everything about my agreement with Leo. When she heard about our 3 ground rules, she couldn't help but laugh. Did he laugh at your first rule about getting to know each other, and your third one about divorcing if there were no feelings? I nodded. Christina, my dear, that boy of mine knows you and likes you more than you think. Eleanor began to tell me Leo's story. Back when Eleanor wasn't well liked in the Vaughn family, Leo was often bullied by his older cousins. At every family gathering, in corners where the adults couldn't see, little Leo was often tormented. Sometimes they would trick him into going to a deserted place, other times they would try to make him bark like a dog. If he didn't, they would threaten to kill the stray cat he had taken in. One day, I was walking by with my sister and saw a group of kids ganging up on a little boy, holding him down. The kids were laughing, shouting, "Bark! Aren't you good at begging?" while a cat cried pitifully nearby. I grabbed a broom, charged in, and scattered them. My sister took the chance to grab the cat, and we saved the poor boy. He was covered in dirt. He mumbled a thank you, then clutched the cat and ran off. Because of that? Something so small I didn't even remember it had made Leo think of me for all these years? No, Eleanor said with a sad smile. When that child came back to Los Angeles, he was very withdrawn. We thought he had trauma from being bullied at the Vaughns and took him to a therapist. That's when we found out about you. Later, we pulled some strings and found you quickly. But Leo didn't want to disturb your life. Knowing that you were doing well in school, had a happy family, and that everything was good for you, was enough for him. Distance creates beauty, but also regret. When he returned to Ridgemont to start his career, he found out that my family had fallen on hard times after I graduated. By then, my eyes were only for William. He respected my choice and quietly wished me well. He stepped back into the role of an observer and even gave the Sheridan family a lot of business opportunities because of me. He just never expected William to be such a complete jerk. Because of his upbringing, that child has always been very thoughtful and serious, Eleanor sighed. No matter how much he likes something, he won't say it directly. No matter how much he wants something, he's not used to asking for it. I remembered the little boy who, despite being dressed like a prince, had bruises all over his face, arms, and knees, his eyes stubborn and wary even of kindness. You are his only exception, Eleanor said, a sad smile on her face. He's been carrying his family registration book with him all this time. No wonder the heir to the massive Vaughn family could make the decision on the spot to get a marriage license with me. That evening, after finishing his work in Ridgemont, Leo rushed to Los Angeles. At the dinner table, Eleanor kept praising my heroics from earlier, making my face turn all shades of red and white. Leo peeled shrimp for me, chuckling to himself. He laughed so much that I secretly kicked him under the table. That night, Eleanor had arranged a room with a king-sized bed for us. I stood by the bed, feeling awkward. Our apartment in Ridgemont was huge. Leo and I each had our own room, with one to spare. We had never slept in the same room before. After getting ready, Leo walked over, drying his hair. Water droplets rolled down his beautiful muscles, his shoulders broad and waist narrow, every line defined. The residual heat from the bathroom filled the air, and I lowered my eyes, not daring to look. A strong arm reached past me. "I'll sleep on the sofa." His voice was low and husky. "Wait." I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed his arm and pulled him close. "Come up here. I'm cold." "Okay." The bed dipped beside me as an unfamiliar warmth drew near. Leo ignored how cold my hands and feet were, pulling them into his embrace and rubbing them constantly. "Why are you so cold?" he murmured, frowning as he held my hands and feet tightly. "I'm still cold," I whispered, staring at his handsome face, so close to mine. "I'll go make you some brown sugar tea." He actually started to get out of bed. Panicked and throwing caution to the wind, I wrapped my arms around him from behind. I buried my burning face in the small of his back and whispered, "You idiot, can't you do something to warm me up?" By the time I was sweating and trying to push him away, Leo was no longer concerned about whether I was hot or not. I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open, but he was more energetic than ever. He brushed my bangs aside and rained gentle, tender kisses down my nose, lips, chin, and collarbone. "Leo. I'm not cold anymore. I want to sleep," I bit my lip, trying to escape his grasp. "Don't be scared, baby. I'll be gentle this time." He had switched to his own version of read and reply whatever he wants mode. Before leaving Los Angeles, Leo gave me a surprise I would never forget. He had, at some point, donated a new building to my alma mater. He didn't want his name on it, nor did he want any recognition. All he wanted was to dig up a rusty iron box from under the athletic field. A time capsule I had buried when I was a student. Inside was a childishly drawn picture of my family, with a small wish written on it: I want to tell the whole world that I love my family. Leo bought out the front pages of all the newspapers and magazines in Los Angeles that day, published my drawing, and added a line at the end. I love you too. Some people scoffed, assuming it was just another domineering CEO spending a fortune to make his pampered wife smile. Others debated that it was probably a real estate company's marketing stunt for a new development. But my favorite comment was a quiet, overlooked one. Someone who loves you will talk with you about the most boring topics and listen to your most absurd ideas. He replies to every message and follows through on everything. That's right. Someone who truly likes you can't leave you on read and wouldn't dream of ghosting you on purpose. No matter how childish. He's willing to listen to you, to play along with you. That person. I had finally connected with him.